Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my channel, Tomcat Stitchery. I'm Whitney, and today we are talking about just the importance of being creative in our sewing and how that can manifest itself in some really cool ways. Why sewing is the best hobby, the best creative outlet, not that I'm biased at all, and all those things. And I'm going to show you the newest jacket that I have made. But before we get into that, it is January 14th. We are halfway through the month of January, and I don't know, like I got my Christmas decorations. Actually, those came down really like right after, gosh, even before the new year because we were home, but Christmas decorations are down. Everyone's back to school and work. My kids are back at their last semester, which is crazy. It's just time to get back into routine, fresh starts. As I am filming this, it is very cold outside and gray and snowing, which is why I'm in all of the bright colors, because this is how I combat that. And honestly, this is kind of the first video of the year that's not kind of sale related. We had the Love Notion sale last week, and I had some content based on that. But yeah, just kind of getting back into the normal routine. And how that usually manifests itself for me, and how it manifests itself for me this year as well, is that usually once the busyness of the holiday season and all of that festivity is kind of over, and now we're into the gray months of winter, which where I live here in Indiana can last quite a while. But now it's the time to really my sojo just really kicks in, I guess, which is good because this is kind of a mental health, maybe a way for my body to combat the kind of the winter doldrums. Also why I dress in bright color during this time, just to really boost my mood and try and get that, I mean, I take vitamin D and all that kind of thing, but to get that endorphin and that serotonin boost that we don't often get when it's super gray outside and cold and gross. So the way, again, that manifests itself for me is like creativity. Like I will have just a burst of creativity. And I don't know if it's just an act of getting out of routine over the holiday season and then getting back into it if that triggers something in my head. But I often find that January is a time where I really start to get excited about sewing plans and yeah, those creative juices just really get flowing. And that is exactly what happened with this newest jacket. So it's kind of a two-part thing. So number one, House of Hotard patterns, which is Tammy. This is the first pattern that she has released on her own, under her own label. She has released one that I know of, maybe more than that though, with other pattern companies. She's a CPA. I mean, that's what she does for a full-time job. So this is absolutely just kind of a side gig for her and a hobby, but she does some really cool designs. And because of that CPA brain, she's very detail oriented and the instructions are like impeccable and the drafting is really good. This is my first of her patterns that I've made. But she was sewing up the Adrey Jacket, gosh, for quite a while. She was kind of playing around and making a pattern for herself. And then she had like a really cool version of it, then decided to turn it into a pattern to sell. And then there were some other really cool versions that she was releasing or just showing on her Instagram. And I was like, oh my gosh, it just screamed like free people / anthropology / urban outfitters. I'm not sure what the original inspiration was behind this idea for this pattern, but she does lean towards those kind of clothing stores, like when she is talking about her inspiration. So anyway, and it felt very much that way for me. And I was just like, oh my gosh, these are such like really cool options. I would love to make this jacket at some point. I'm going to have to buy this pattern when it comes out. And it did come out, gosh, right before Christmas was when the pattern was released, and I snatched it up pretty much right away. So had the pattern. Back in November, I'm part of the Cashmerette Club and the all access tier. And usually every month when they'll have some sort of a deal with either a deal that they're running on their own site, like a certain percentage off one of their patterns, or sometimes they have a deal with like a fabric company or some other outside company where you'll get, a certain percentage off that company for the month or whatever it might be. And in November, I think it was November, they had, I think it was 25% off at Gorgeous Fabrics because they'd released a coat pattern. So it was 25% off all their coatings, I think is what it was. So I'm like, I'm just going to go over and look. I'd never purchased anything from Gorgeous Fabrics. I've heard about Gorgeous Fabrics. I know that people have bought Gorgeous Fabric from Gorgeous Fabrics, but I just went to have a perusal and came across this fabric, which I showed you guys on the channel, and it was just, it was my colors. It was just ridiculous enough and like fabulous enough that I'm like, I need this. I have no idea what it's going to be, but I need this. So I grabbed 3 yards of it and stuck it in my stash. And this is where I think a stash really does come in handy for myself. I like to have basics in my stash so that if I need to whip up something, you know, a basic piece of clothing, I have it right here. But I also like to keep, within reason, a few really special pieces that I see just because I love, and then just wait for inspiration to strike, and that's absolutely what happened here. So when we were back in Missouri, I was buying this pattern and kind of thinking about things, and we had put this fabric onto the content calendar for January, but I didn't know what pattern I was going to use. And I was at my in-laws, and I was just kind of thinking through like a few things, you know, dreaming and that sort of thing, planning my sewing in my head, you know, while we were there. And all of a sudden, I was in bed one night, and I'm like, I need to use that granny square fabric with that Adrey jacket. Like, I just couldn't get it out of my head. We came back home earlier than normal because we're having our bathroom renovated and we needed to be here for the workers. So we came back a little bit early, and I told Jenny, I'm like, I've got to make this jacket. Like, I can't get it out of my head. I love when this happens. I can't get it out of my head, and it's not going to be satisfied until it is actually gone from brain to fruition. I don't know if it's going to be as amazing as what I'm picturing, but I just feel like these two things need to go together. She's like, okay, whatever. So I projected, I used the projector file for this pattern, projected it out, and it took me a long time to cut this out for a few reasons. Number one, this is weird fabric. So it is like, it's a knitted background. Like the back of the fabric is like a knitted mesh. And then it has like these tufts of wool, like almost woven through it. So it's not, the wool is not knitted onto it. It's almost like woven onto the knitted backing. So it had a little bit of give. But this is all like tufts of wool, basically. Kind of like a needle punch, like you think of like what needle punch would be. Anyway, it's a really cool fabric. But it was kind of a beast to cut. It was almost like cutting faux fur, a little bit close, but not quite. And then I decided to go with the lined version. So I cut out lining that I just had in my stash. And then I knew, because this was so thick, I'm like, I do not want to do a welt pocket with this fabric. It's just really thick and bulky and kind of weird. You know, like interfacing wasn't going to stick to the back of it easily and that sort of thing. So I'm like, what can I use as a contrast? And I'm like, I'm going to use leather. So I dug into my bin of thrifted leather items. Jenny and I are always on the lookout when we are thrifting. We always take a look at, you know, the jackets and that sort of thing where there might be leather. I love thrifting leather. It's already out in the open. A lot of times those pieces are damaged in some way, so easy to cut around, and you can use them for like really cool applications. So I had this skirt, and when I threw it on top of the fabric, I was like, oh my gosh, that is the same color as the background of this fabric. So I decided to use the suede skirt for my accents on this coat, and hopefully I'm giving you like a real up close look at what the details on this coat. So it took me a little bit to cut everything out. But once I started sewing on this, I think it took me 2 days of sewing. That wasn't like continual 2 days. One day I had a big chunk because it was one of those days that we had gotten back home and everyone needed to be in their separate corner for a little bit, you know, like a little too much family time. And so I was down here working in my sewing room. But I got it sewn up pretty quickly. Got to use my press. On my snaps here at the front, I used my new grommet press, my grommet die for my hand press to do the grommets. That turned out really, really well. So basically I have the leather at one part of the welt pocket, and then the same fabric is in the pocket facing here. And then I used quilting cotton for the bulk of the pocket because the pocket actually gets caught into the front placket here as well as into the hemband. And she's got instructions on if you're using, because she's made it with like raincoat material, if you're using lighter weight fabric, you can cut the pockets out all in one fabric. But if you are using bulkier fabric, how, you know, there's different pattern pieces you can use to cut that up so your bulk, you don't have as much bulk in those areas, which I think is brilliant. Like I said, I fully lined it. She lines this a really cool way too. It's not a way that I have lined things before, but it absolutely made sense for the way that this all went together, and it worked out really, really well. Like I said, it's got this facing, the placket basically that goes all the way down center front. I did not worry about finishing or trying to fold under the edge of this leather. I just trimmed really close to the stitching line after I'd sewn that down, just because it was leather. I'm not sure if I'm crazy about the drawstring that I've got in here. It's black. It's just what I had on hand. I may change that out, but for now it works really, really well. You can do the straps, like there's these straps that are here on the sleeve, which is really cool. These epaulette like straps that are here. Again, I use my punch for, or my hand press for the snaps, as well as I did rivets on this guy down here. And yeah, I just had like a lot of fun. It has a very large hood on it. It feels very streetwear to me, but I just feel like this fabric, it allows the fabric to sing, and I am obsessed with it. And it feels like a Urban Outfitters Anthropologie Free People type of garment, something that I would see there. But it fits me perfectly. It also has elastic here in the hemband, so it's like a bomber jacket, basically, like an oversized bomber jacket. It's got the sleeve goes off the arm, so here's the shoulder seam, not really a shoulder seam, it's the sleeve seam, I guess, off the side. It's alphanumerical sizing, so I made the size medium, and honestly, I picked it off my high bust measurement as the full bust, and then just looked at finished measurements, and there was plenty of room for my actual full bust. So I would rather it not be overwhelming in the shoulder, because it's already oversized anyway. I didn't want it to be too, like, way oversized, and I think that this worked out perfectly. I'm obsessed with this jacket. I just think it's maybe one of the coolest things that I've ever made. And I'm just so happy that it came out and looks as good as like what I was envisioning in my head. Size medium, I made 0 alterations to the pattern. I didn't shorten the sleeve. I didn't do any of that. I literally made just the size medium as is, used the projector file, and it just turned out really well. You don't have to line it. There's options for not lining it, but I am going to be wearing this over sweaters and stuff like that, so I absolutely wanted, and the back of this fabric's ugly because it's that knitted backing, or like a mesh kind of backing. So I absolutely wanted to line the entire thing, and this is an actual lining that I just had in my stash, so it's nice and slick, and goes over things. Excuse my mannequin and her bra. It just goes over things really, really easily. And because it's so oversized, I can easily wear it over many, many layers. Again, 2 days to sew. It really wasn't that hard of a sew. And had I not done, like, what took me the longest was just sewing with the leather, because you have to go so slow with leather. And I kept, my thread kept, you know, sometimes it like, frays on you, kind of, you know, where you're sewing and then you have like a ball up here at the top of the thread because it's like kind of come apart a little bit. I have that happen to me, not frequently, but sometimes when I'm working with leather, and I'm sure it's just the friction. I mean, I'm using a leather needle and all that stuff in the right foot. But yeah, sometimes that happens. So I had to go a little bit slower than normal, but it came out really, really good. So this was my first make of 2025. I have a couple of more that I've already accomplished this month, but they are surprise things. I've got two now, yes. One was the pattern release. It was last week, the Evanston, but I've got 2 more that are coming end of January, beginning of February, that I've also been working on in the background, and they're really good, and I can't wait to tell you about those. Yeah, I've got a lot of coats coming up to you. I've just really been in the mood to sew. Like, it has really hit me like a ton of bricks, and I feel like when that mood strikes, that's what I want to do, and so that's what I allow myself to do. So anyway, I hope that the sewing bug has bit you as well as we have delved into this new year. If you have not bitten, you know, taken the jump and learned to garment sew, guys, I do have a class. I have an intro to garment sewing class that will hold your hand through how to make some basic garments. Well, you'll be making up jackets like this in no time. So if you also see things that you love in the stores and you want to make it come to reality in your own life, absolutely want to look into that class, and I will leave that linked down below. I hope you guys are all having a wonderful New Year so far, even though we're halfway through January now. I hope you're staying warm if you're here in the Northern Hemisphere, if you're somewhere cold like I am. If not, I hope you're enjoying your January and just taking a time to breathe and regroup and yeah, get excited about all the things that the upcoming year has to bring. All right, have a wonderful week. Get some sewing in, and I'll see you guys again on Friday. Bye.